Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight.
जज उठाए, ये जज उठाए उन्होंने अदलिया में से।
Is Pakistan afraid to arrest Imran Khan? That is our top focus tonight in this edition. And I ask this question because of the latest developments coming in from the country. The country's former Prime Minister has gotten bail in 3 big cases. And the PMLN is accusing the judiciary of bias. You heard that right. So is Pakistan judiciary favoring Imran Khan, protecting him? Is the judiciary overstepping its role? We piece together the reactions coming in from on the ground. We tell you what these cases are all about, what the claims and counterclaims are, and how things have reached this point. Also, the show for you tonight, China is provoking Taiwan, a fresh provocation that has once again led to questions being raised over China's hypocrisy. It wants to play peacemaker in Ukraine, but continues to provoke Taiwan. And China is furious as the TikTok ban is widening. We tell you what the country has said. Is China making addiction the new pandemic? We tell you why and how it is introducing a new product at a time when countries across the world are trying to eliminate smoking. Just how deadly are artificial sweeteners? A study links them to heart diseases. We tell you all about it. Our big story tonight is about Pakistan's judiciary. Pakistan is drowning in a sea of troubles with a sinking economy, rising prices, horrendous debt, rampant terrorism. And it is now facing another dramatic crisis. Are Pakistan's judges working in alliance to destroy the country's government in order to protect one politician, Imran Khan? Are the judges trying to shape the country's politics through a series of decisions designed to sabotage the government of Shehbaz Sharif and the Bhuttos in order to save the cricket hero turned politician, former Prime Minister Imran Khan? I ask these questions because the facade of judicial propriety in Pakistan has descended to a whole new low. From the sessions courts to the high courts to the Supreme Court, it seems they have all united to protect one man, Imran Khan, Pakistan's former Wazir-e-Azam. He is facing a litany of lawsuits, from accusations of corruption to charges of instigating unrest to allegations of subverting the democratic process. But one after the other, every judge is passing orders in his favor. Let me just take you through them one at a time. The first case pertained to prohibited political funding of taking slush funds. To put it simply, it was filed way back in 2014 by a former member of Imran Khan's own party. He accused Imran Khan and his party, PTI, of receiving millions of dollars in donations from 2 offshore companies. And these donations were never reported, it seems, to Pakistan's Election Commission. 8 years and 96 hearings later, a banking court based in Islamabad has accepted Imran Khan's bail plea. The verdict has been reserved for a later time. Case number 2 being terrorism. This one is from last year. It's related to protests outside Pakistan's election commission following Imran Khan's disqualification from office. The charge was that Imran Khan encouraged his supporters to indulge in vandalism and stoke public unrest. And it turns out he might get away with this one as well. On Tuesday, an anti-terrorism court approved Imran Khan's interim bail until the 9th of March. Pakistani observers say the bench hearing this case might just drop the charges too. On to case number 3, attempt to murder. This one was filed by PMLN leader Mohsin Shahnawaz. He alleged that during Imran Khan's Azadi March last year, he was attacked by a policeman in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in an attempt to kill him. The leader alleged that the cop was acting at the behest of Imran Khan. A case was filed, an arrest warrant was issued. But on Tuesday, the Islamabad High Court granted interim bail to the PTI chief. And reports say the relief has been granted until the 9th of March against surety bonds worth 1 lakh Pakistani rupees. So you have illegal funding, terrorism and attempt to murder. In any other country, cases like these could spell the end of a politician's career. But Pakistan is different, you see. That's not what is happening in Pakistan, it seems. And certainly not if you are Imran Khan. What's more, even the Supreme Court of Pakistan seems to be on his side. Have a look at this headline now. Pakistan's top court has ordered elections in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Are you wondering what this is about? Why should the Supreme Court take such a decision? That is the duty of the Election Commission. Let me just explain this. In January this year, the assemblies of both these provinces were dissolved. This was seen as an attempt by Imran Khan to create a constitutional crisis, an attempt to force the Sharifs and the Bhuttos to hold early national general elections in the country because Imran Khan believes that he can win a general election and become Prime Minister again. And since then, these provinces were being run by interim governments. There was a deadlock on when the elections should be held. But last week, the Supreme Court of Pakistan trespassed into the executive space and launched suo motu proceedings into this matter. Suo motu, it means it acted on its own volition in a political dispute. No one asked the top court to do this. It took this action of its own accord. And a week later, the verdict is out. The Election Commission has been directed to hold elections within 90 days by all means. And Imran Khan could not be happier. On his Twitter account, he is singing praises of the judgment, thanking the top court for upholding the constitution. In fact, he is so happy that he even suspended his party's Jail Bharo movement, a drive that was launched last week to prevent him from getting arrested. So just how should we view all these developments? Is Pakistan's judiciary trying to orchestrate another regime change? For decades, it is the Pakistan army that has been accused of unconstitutional interference in government through coups. Are we now witnessing a coup by Pakistan's judges? Are the judges supporters of Imran Khan? These are questions many leaders in Islamabad are asking. Leaders like Rana Sanola, the Interior Minister of Pakistan. He says Imran Khan has held the judiciary hostage to get arbitrary decisions, and he is asking the country's courts to not give him special treatment. Is there any merit to his claims? Has the judiciary really joined hands with Imran Khan? Well, it helps to look at the credentials of the judges ruling in his favor. The names of two of them stand out. Justice Mazahir Naqvi Justice Ijaz ul Ehsan. These two were the ones who took so motu notice of delay in provincial elections in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The PMLN says both of them are friends of Imran Khan and are biased against the government. And leading this charge against the judiciary is Maryam Nawaz, the daughter of Nawaz Sharif. Speaking at a rally on Thursday, she displayed the images of both these judges, accusing them of being hand in glove with Imran Khan. She said they were running a cabal that is responsible for the current political mess, that was also behind a conspiracy that led to Nawaz Sharif's ouster in 2017. You have to listen to this.
2014 में उसका धरना नाकाम हो गया, फिर उसका लॉकडाउन नाकाम हो गया, तो फिर उसने दूसरा तरीका सोचा, फिर उन्होंने अदलिया में से वो जज उठाए, ये जज उठाए उन्होंने अदलिया में से। वो इजाजुल एहसन याद है ना, चीफ जस्टिस बनने के ख्वाब देख रहा है, वो पैनामा बेंच में बैठा था, नवाज शरीफ को नाअहल करने वालों में बैठा था, और आज तक नवाज शरीफ को नाअहल हुए वे 5-6 साल गुजर गए, लेकिन आज भी कोई भी नवाज शरीफ के खिलाफ मुकदमा हो, वो आज भी जज बनकर बैठा होता है।
Well, you heard that. These judges are corrupt. They are against Nawaz Sharif. Last we checked, a petition seeking contempt proceedings against her had been filed in a Pakistani court. And as for Imran Khan, he doesn't have to worry about such proceedings because almost every judge seems to be in his favor. The question is why? Imran Khan's opponents have a simple answer: cash. We are not saying this. Pakistan's politicians are accusing their own judiciary of corruption. In fact, one Pakistani leader says it's because he is handsome. I'm not making this up. I could not make this up, even if I tried. Have a look at this report. Atiullah Tarar, the special assistant to Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, is saying that the judiciary is indulging in double standards and trying to facilitate Imran Khan because he is handsome. So they have one law for him and another for the others. Well, those less good looking, according to him. That is right. A Pakistani leader said this on record. Pakistan claims to be the land of the pure. It has become the land of the unbelievable. You know, the people of Pakistan did not ask for any of this. The common man is not the perpetrator of the crisis, but the victim. Victim of favoritism, victim of the economic crisis, victim of the political crisis. Ask any common Pakistani and she will tell you that all she wants is to exit this vicious cycle of misery that Pakistan has become. All she wants is a better future. Shahida Raza was no different. Shahida was an exceptional sportsperson. She excelled in hockey, in football. She was a champion. But she lost a game with her fate. Shahida was found dead in Europe. What was she doing there? Escaping Pakistan. She had boarded a boat from Turkey along with 200 other migrants. The boat was supposed to sail to Italy. That is where Shahida had hoped to start a new life, build a better future for herself and her baby girl. Shahida had paid over $8,000 for the boat journey. But that boat never made it to Italy. It crashed into a sea cliff. Shahida did not survive. She was all of 27. Shahida's friends would call her Chintu. She was born in Balochistan, and all her life, Shahida had to fight the problems that come with being a Hazara in Pakistan. You are attacked, prosecuted, neglected by the state. And to top that, Shahida was a single mother. She had to take care of her infant girl, secure her future. All of this forced Shahida to leave the country. It seems Shahida left without her daughter. Probably she wanted to get to Europe first, find a job there, have a stable source of income, find a safe home before coming back to get her daughter. But little did Shahida know that she would never see her daughter again. The Pakistan Hockey Federation issued a statement. It quote-unquote expressed condolences to the family of former international women's hockey player Shahida Raza, or Chintu, who died due to an accident, and prayed for her forgiveness. Guess who else should be asking for her and her daughter's forgiveness? The government of Pakistan. The establishment. They failed Shahida. They failed to give her a good life, despite Shahida giving all that she had for the country. This woman played not one, but 2 sports for her country. She represented Pakistan internationally. Shahida was a member of Pakistan's hockey team. She captained the army hockey team. How did the country repay her? By pushing her over the edge, forcing her to leave the country, compelling her to get on an unsafe boat on a day when the weather was terrible. Pakistan forced Shahida to risk her life. And Shahida died because of her motherland. China is at it again. It has once again started rehearsing the Taiwan war. Planes have been sent towards the island, so have ships. What exactly is China's end game here? The invasion of Taiwan. Currently, it is testing waters, figuring out whether now is the right time. The world is not really giving China a reason to think no, because when earlier today 25 Chinese warplanes were spotted near Taiwan, the world watched silently. There are 2 ways to look at this. Is this the world's war to fight? And if it is not, will the silence only encourage China to look beyond Taiwan? Because that is exactly what China wants. Start with Taiwan and take it from there. The warplanes that were spotted earlier today were in Taiwan's air defense identification zone. What is that, you ask? Well, an air defense identification zone is a buffer zone outside the country's sovereign airspace. Entering into a country's space like this one requires its permission. And any violation of this is treated as the violation of a country's sovereignty. But China here does not even recognize Taiwan's sovereignty. It considers the island a part of China, remember. You could say that China is deluded, it is fixated on history, or just an obsessive challenger of the rule of law. Either way, the reality stays unchanged. And the reality is that China has its eyes set on Taiwan. Earlier today, the Chinese J-10 planes flew into the southwest corner of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. At least 3 Chinese ships were spotted sailing near Taiwan. Taipei says this harassment is regular. But from where I am sitting, it looks more like intimidation. Even a glimpse of what may be in store. And why do I say that? Because with every rehearsal, with every war game, China is only coming closer to Taiwan. Earlier this week, 4 Chinese planes crossed the median line of the strait. For decades, this line served as a red line between China and Taiwan. But not anymore. Now, China has been regularly crossing the red line, and the frequency of these war games has intensified. And how? Taiwan has chosen not to be a silent spectator. Earlier today, it responded to Chinese provocation by scrambling jets, sending ships, even activating its coastal missile defense systems. But to what end? For how long will this story keep playing in loop? Because China sees nothing wrong in doing what it is doing. It says these rehearsals are justified. But how and why? To defend its territorial integrity. And you see the problem here. Beijing is living in an alternate reality. One where Taiwan is a part of China. One where it is okay to send fighter planes into a neighboring country's air defense zone. One where you can provoke a war while also championing sovereignty. These visuals are from Beijing, where the Chinese President Xi Jinping met the Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko. Guess what the two of them spoke about? Safeguarding sovereignty. Ironical much. Listen in.
Given the instability and turbulence of the international situation, China is actively inclined to continue to apply joint efforts with Belarus in order to strengthen mutual political trust and practical cooperation in the interests of dynamic, healthy and sustainable development of bilateral relations.
We condemned the actions aimed at heightening tensions around Taiwan. Belarus has always stood by the One China principle, promoted a peaceful solution, and strongly opposed any foreign interference in the internal affairs of the People's Republic of China. Minsk has supported and will continue to support Beijing in all sensitive issues, including those of Xinjiang, the South China Sea, Hong Kong and Taiwan.
And when he says heightened tensions around Taiwan, Lukashenko is not referring to the Chinese provocation, but of a US Navy jet flying over the Taiwan Strait. It happened on Monday. The Chinese military obviously objected. It accused the United States of hyping the flight and inflaming tensions. The spokesperson for China's Eastern Theater Command went on to say that the US flight has quote-unquote deliberately disrupted the regional situation and jeopardized the peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. That's pretty rich, is it not? And Washington, by the way, replied by saying that the flight was aimed towards demonstrating America's commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. It has been US versus China on Taiwan for quite some time now, and Belarus has failed to surprise us with its choice of side. After all, during this visit, Xi and fellow dictator Lukashenko signed an all-weather strategic partnership. Guess what it follows? A no-limits partnership with Russia, which just happens to be the closest ally of Russia. Remember, we have been telling you about the new axis between China, Iran and Moscow. Well, it is expanding and changing the dynamics in the Taiwan Strait. And from China's provocations in Taiwan, we turn to China's soft power tool. I'm talking about TikTok. It is in the eye of the storm. A storm that has enraged China. It made landfall on Tuesday when Canada and the United States banned TikTok from all government devices, citing risks to their national security. And 24 hours on, this ban is only spreading. Last we checked, it had reached Europe. Have a look at this headline. The European Parliament has also banned TikTok from staff phones. Their reason is the same, a growing fear that China could be using TikTok to collect the personal information of its users. So how long will this ban be executed for? Reports say it will be enforced starting the 20th of March and will apply to all corporate devices like mobile phones and tablets that are enrolled in the EU Parliament's mobile management application. And it has also issued a detailed statement about that decision. This is what it states. In view of cybersecurity concerns, in particular regarding data protection and collection of data by third parties, the European Parliament has decided, in alignment with the other institutions, to suspend, as from the 20th of March, the use of the TikTok mobile application on corporate devices. Now, for the Unrest, this decision effectively bans TikTok from all three main institutions of the European Union. This includes the European Parliament, the European Council, and the European Commission. Going forward, no one working for these bodies will be able to use this Chinese application. Next question. How many people will this ban impact? Reports say at least 8,000 EU employees across the three institutions. Together, they represent a total of 27 EU member states. And that's not all. Have a look at this report now. The Parliament of Denmark also has asked its MPs to uninstall TikTok. Why is that? Because of a growing risk of spying. This step follows recommendations from the Danish Center for Cybersecurity. It recently urged the officials and the civil servants to remove TikTok from their phones. So you have Denmark, Canada, the US, and the European Union. All four of them have banned their officials from installing this application on their devices. Their decisions have infuriated China. It's fuming. On Tuesday, it said that countries banning TikTok lack self-confidence. And on Wednesday, it issued another statement, asking the European Union to stop abusing the concept of national security. It added that such practices undermine the international community's confidence in the EU's business environment. And what about TikTok? Has the company said anything? Yes, it has. It has accused the European Union of lack of transparency. Let me just quote the exact statement. We are really operating under a cloud, and the lack of transparency and the lack of due process. Quite frankly, one would expect some sort of engagement on this matter. We believe this suspension is misguided and based on fundamental misconceptions. So just where are things headed? Why are Western countries all of a sudden going after TikTok? Is it really because of national security concerns? Is it because of China's growing involvement in the Ukraine war? I know this question may seem a bit far-fetched, but what were these countries doing all this while? You see, for the last 2 years now, their own institutes and experts have been warning about the potential security threats that this Chinese application poses. Why did they wait until 2023 to act on these warnings? All I'm trying to say is that the timing of their decisions makes one suspicious. China, by the way, recently unveiled a peace plan for Ukraine. And to everybody's surprise, the Ukrainian president is on board the plan. He says that he's even willing to meet Xi Jinping to discuss it. Is Europe rattled by this? Is it trying to get back at China by cutting TikTok down to size? There is no clear answer to these questions, only speculation. In any case, this decision was about time. Time and again, various global organizations have raised fears that TikTok's owner, ByteDance, could be misusing the personal information of TikTok's American users, that it could be handing this information to the Chinese regime, which could then be using it for propaganda or pushing disinformation. We told you about this in detail yesterday. In December last year, TikTok's parent company itself had admitted to unintentional snooping, and an internal investigation by ByteDance found that 4 of its employees had inappropriately obtained the data of American TikTok users. And this included the data of 2 American reporters who worked for BuzzFeed and the Financial Times. So there has been ample evidence against TikTok for quite some time now. Yet, the US, Canada, and the European Union took so long to take action. We wonder what stopped them. I ask this because, unlike the West, a host of countries in Asia had already acted upon these warnings long back. Have a look at this. This is a list of countries that have banned TikTok. It starts with India. In June 2020, remember, it imposed an outright ban on the application. And then we have Afghanistan. In April 2022, it banned the app because of its inconsistencies with Islamic laws. And that same year, Taiwan banned the app from all government devices. And lastly, Iran had banned the app long back. So what took the West so long? What was it waiting for all this while? And now it has banned the app from government devices. Does it also plan to extend the ban to the common man? Are Western countries planning to impose an outright ban on TikTok? If they are, the app's parent company could be in for some major losses. And these numbers will give you an idea. They are from the United States. TikTok has over 113 million active users in America. This year itself, its annual revenue in America is set to hit $8.75 billion. And if I speak of Europe, TikTok has a total of 150 million users there, give or take. And if I speak of revenue, it generated around $4.6 billion in Europe in the year 2021. By all means, this revenue has grown in the last 2 years. So if the US and Europe decide to eliminate TikTok completely, if the two decide to ban the app for every citizen, TikTok could lose 2 big markets, with its revenues taking a beating. This will not only hurt TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, it will also be a significant setback for China. Remember, when India decided to ban TikTok, it did not restrict the ban to the app only. It also went after other Chinese apps suspected of spying. In fact, more than 200 such applications were banned. Could Europe and America take a similar step? Well, first, they'll have to start by imposing a nationwide ban on TikTok. And from where I see it, this could take months, if not years. And it's not just TikTok or Chinese tech that is under question. The country is also mass-producing seemingly harmless devices, which in fact may not be as safe as people think. After spreading the Wuhan virus, China seems to be on track to create another pandemic. And this one too could harm your lungs. I am talking about vapes. Have a look at these devices. They are called ELF bars. Look at their pastel colors. They look so harmless, don't they? They come in all sorts of fruity flavors: cherry, bubblegum, watermelon. You can choose from 40 different options. You can even match them with your aesthetic outfits. You can get 600 puffs for $6, and then you can just throw them away. It is more than enough to entice teenagers. But believe me, these vaping devices are not as innocent as they seem. They are loaded with nicotine, and they are getting teenagers addicted. Their e-liquid contains 20 milligrams of nicotine per milliliter. 20 milligrams of nicotine per milliliter. This, by the way, is the highest concentration permitted in the UK. But the ELF bar 600 range was caught flouting. Its nicotine levels were 50% over the legal limit. China produces them, The UK imports them. If you just take a stroll down a British street, you will find their unrecyclable carcasses strewn in the gutters, on bus floors, chucked into hedges. More than 2.5 million of the Chinese elf bars are sold in the UK each week. They are available in garages and corner shops. Very few sellers bother to check if the buyers are above 18 years old. And it's not just the elf bars, by the way. Teenagers below 18 are puffing on all kinds of disposable vapes. Some of them have the same amount of nicotine as 48 cigarettes. 48 cigarettes. The situation has gotten out of hand. Some students cannot go through lessons without vaping in toilets. Schools are paying hefty plumbing bills. Why? Because discarded vapes keep blocking their cisterns. Many students stress over getting through a 2-hour examination without vaping. So much that they are buying nicotine patches. They use the nicotine rush to power through their essays. Student halls reek of strawberry and banana. In 2022, 15.8% of 11 to 17-year-olds had tried vaping. 7% were active users. More than half of the children who vaped said that they preferred e-cigarettes. And the most popular brand was Elf Bar. Now, can you even imagine an 11-year-old exhaling smoke? Most of these children have never smoked a cigarette in their life. And yet, they get addicted to vapes. And why is that? Why does that happen? Because Chinese brands like the Elf Bars know how to sell their product and they don't care who is buying them. In fact, they might even be targeting impressionable minds. Let me tell you about some facts here. Social media influencers promote Elf Bars. The company pays them for doing this. They have been seen smoking on camera. And these videos are not age restricted. They are not always clearly marked as advertisements. And this is what has been happening on TikTok. Hashtag Elf Bar has had nearly 100 million views. The platform is used by half of 8 to 11-year-olds and 1/3 of the 16 to 17-year-olds in the UK. You see, youngsters are exposed to such content. So what else do you expect will happen? China, you see, is playing a very smart game here. In recent years, it has cracked down on the booming vaping industry. Last year, it banned the sale of flavored e-cigarettes. Vapes that had flavorings other than tobacco could not be sold on Chinese domestic market. Pay attention to my words here, the domestic market. It is still very much okay with exporting the same poison to the UK. Now, calling it poison might seem like an overstatement, but let me tell you, we are yet to find the actual repercussions of the vaping devices, what the impact is like. Public Health England says that vapes can help you give up smoking cancerous cigarettes. Now, that makes sense for the adult smokers, but what about the budding teenagers and the adolescents? They might not go out to buy a cigarette, but they are very likely to buy a bubblegum-flavored, sweet-smelling vape. These devices are laying the groundwork. Smoking could very well be the next step, and China seems to be okay with it. Because why would it care about the youth of other countries? As of now, experts suspect 3 major risk factors associated with vaping. First one being the nicotine. It alters brain growth and changes the brain development. A study by Wisconsin University found that vapes cause the same spikes in blood pressure and the heart rate as smoking tobacco. Number 2, chemicals and flavorings in the vaping liquid. Some of their components, like diacetyl, can permanently scar the lung issue. They are also suspected to affect the ability to taste. And number 3, the metal particles from the device. Studies of blood and urine samples from users contained lead and arsenic. Now, these metals can increase the risk of cancer and other diseases. They can also directly damage the lung tissue. So if you think vapes are harmless, you might want to think again. Users may not see the dangers right now, but they might be evident 30 to 40 years down the lane. We may see a wave of chronic lung problems due to the chemicals being inhaled. And China has tactically banned all flavoring. Ireland is considering outlawing all disposable vapes as litter. It is already banned in Japan and India. Australia asks for a prescription before selling vapes. Yet, Public Health England is not taking any notes, it seems. It still thinks vaping devices are better than cigarettes. But are they? On to our other top focus. Foreign ministers of the G20 nations are meeting in New Delhi. And India has an uphill task before it. It seeks to get all parties on board in describing Russia's war in Ukraine. This meeting is a very significant one. It comes only days after a gathering of the G20 finance ministers, which, by the way, failed to render a joint statement. Will India achieve the feat this time around? Here's a detailed report.
India is pushing Russia and China on G20 consensus on war wording. It aims to achieve a joint communique on referring to the Russian invasion as war. This was reached by the leaders last year in Bali, but this time it seems difficult. G20 finance ministers and central bank heads met in Bengaluru last month. They failed to reach a consensus. China and Russia were to blame. Most leaders strongly condemned Moscow for its war on Ukraine. Russia and China opposed, including text criticizing the war in Ukraine. This forced India to issue a chair's summary. Instead of a traditional joint communique, will the foreign ministers' meeting be able to secure a joint communique? We'll get into that in a bit. First, let's see what is happening on ground. 40 delegations from both G20 and non-G20 nations are expected to meet at the Rashtrapati Bhavan Cultural Center in India's capital, New Delhi. On the agenda are ways to deal with falling economic growth, increasing inflation, decreased demands for goods and services, as well as increasing prices of food, fuel, and fertilizers. But most importantly, it is about the Ukraine war. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang are attending the meeting. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has made it clear that he has no plans to meet either of them during the meeting. In a surprise development, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi has decided to skip the meeting. According to the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, the success of the gathering would be measured by what it can do about the war and its impact. Russia say it would use the meeting to send a crucial message. It aims to tell who, according to Moscow, was responsible for the political and economic crises in the world. When G20 leaders gathered last autumn in Bali, Russian missiles hit key Ukrainian infrastructure targets. This happened as world leaders sat down for dinner. Not much has changed since then. The war has continued with no sign of peace talks. The world remains as divided, if not more so. Many big economies are still in turmoil. Beijing and Moscow's coordinated moves at G20 illustrate a growing closeness. Nations led by the US have imposed stringent sanctions to isolate and punish Russia. India doesn't want to be dragged into either camp. New Delhi's primary focus is to make the G20 a success, and a joint communique seems to be the key for that. Will there be one? A majority of nations would be willing to sign it. But China and Russia remain big hurdles.
Let's now talk about what's happening in Israel. Scuffles broke out in the country today. The Israeli police fired stun grenades. Tensions on the ground have been on the rise. Have a look at these images before I tell you more. The police tried to stop the demonstrators breaching the barricades as the traffic continued to pile up. What really is going on here? How did things reach this point? What is behind these tensions? Where are things headed? First things first, let me tell you about these protests. It has been called a day of disruption protest. Disruption over what, you ask? Over a reform of the country's judiciary. At the heart of these protests lies a contentious government plan, a plan to shake up the judiciary. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's nationalist religious coalition government proposed this in January. What exactly does this involve? The ruling coalition lawmakers would be given decisive sway in picking the judges. It limits the scope of the Supreme Court to strike down legislation or rule against the executive. And the protests against the proposals have only gotten more intense. They have gone on for weeks now. Today, footage from on the ground showed the police dragging the protesters off the road as demonstrators called out shame and slogans like "We are the majority and we are out on the streets." Those opposing the move say that the proposals undermine judicial independence, that they will isolate Israel and wreak havoc on the economy. In fact, some Western allies have raised concerns about the health of democracy. Let me quote from what the US ambassador said. "Slow down a little bit, maybe bring people together, try and build some consensus." And on the other hand, Netanyahu says the changes will restore the balance between the branches of the government, that they will boost business. Netanyahu has declared that violence against the police will not be accepted, that the right to demonstrate is not a right to anarchy. Netanyahu, remember, is on trial on corruption charges. He denies those charges. Anger on the ground against the reform plan is a growing cause for concern. In fact, polls have shown the plan is unpopular with most Israelis who would prefer a compromise be reached. In fact, the president has warned that the country is on the brink of constitutional and social collapse. Let me tell you why this situation is particularly alarming. Because of the scenes from on the ground. These are images not seen in Tel Aviv demonstrations in years. Which leads us to ask, where exactly are things headed? Are we going to see the tensions intensifying? And what happens then? Like I said, the growing protests have been a cause for concern, and that is just one part of the story. We also told you earlier how concerns have been raised over the region heading towards a third intifada. For those of you wondering what that is, an intifada is basically a rebellion, a widespread resistance movement. Israel has seen at least two of them. The first one started in 1987 and lasted till September 1993. That's 5 years and 9 months of unrest, protests, violent riots, rocket attacks. Thousands of Palestinians and hundreds of Israeli troops died during this period. It ended after the intervention of the UN Security Council, but just 7 years later came the second intifada. The trigger was the failure of the 2000 Camp David summit, a summit that was expected to reach a final conclusion of the Israel-Palestine peace process. It did not, and what followed was a wave of unrest. It began in September 2000 and lasted till February 2005. It has been over 17 years. Is the region heading towards a third intifada? On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for watching.